If you're all okay, we'll just go ahead and start. It's going to be a very loose conversation. We just really kind of want to know about the history of the works, the archive, the college, and the great stories that go along with it. But as a starting point, I just want to talk about the exhibition and kind of how it got here and what stuff is supposed to look like. As you guys know, exhibitions, like all art, kind of start as a collision between a concept, a material, and a space. And sometimes the exhibition is so much more about the concept we find the work for it, sometimes it's about the space. But in times like this, we just had all this raw work, all this raw material. We had all these beautiful words, and we just kind of had to put together that paragraph or that story to figure out what we wanted to say. This summer, incredibly, our awesome Jen, who's our gallery coordinator, who's actually managing this call from the backside, her and our gallery intern, Jack, they cataloged over 500 pieces of work in our archive, stuff that we had never seen before, stuff I doubt many people in this room had seen before, just all over the place, and we're just pulling treasure after treasure after treasure. And from there, we've got this opportunity to rethink about the archive, the collection, what it means to have ownership and all these different ideas, and how we can put this into a show. So I picked about 50 different pieces. We really weren't looking at any sort of thematic connection. We just wanted to find work that was good or cool or weird, something that we feel like we hadn't seen before. And from there, with all our little bitty elements of the pie, as it were, we started to kind of come up with the narrative. And I'll start with something like this. This, of course, is a banner for the Gorilla Girls. They were here in 2012, and they did a big, city-wide project. And for their elements here, they actually were in this gallery, the Schlossberg, Frame 301, and 301 gallery. It was humongous and huge, and it was a really cool part of the city's history as well as the college's. I don't need to give much introduction about their work, but so much about feminist and female representation in the gallery, the museums, the leadership roles. But as an object, we were so in love with just this cascading form. The physical object itself was so big. We kind of played around with different things in the gallery. It was kind of too big to put on one wall, too big to put on another. Maybe we could hang it, it's actually too big to do that. And we started kind of playing around in the corner, and then just let it fall. And all of a sudden, this art of this beautiful piece mimicked this art of this photo. We just started to see these little bitty patterns and shapes and repetitions, and the moment kind of just found itself. We thought it was quite beautiful, so we had a big piece. And we just knew we'd work around. Going through more of the archive, but I might just twist this a little bit. We found works like Larry Pryor, who's the spouse of one of our favorite Judy Browns. Larry Pryor has his Studio New, which is this young woman kind of in a very similar arc to the odalisque. Something who looks much different in age and form and all these different things. The colors are so much different from the Gorilla Girl, but in form, they're almost mirrors of each other. So we all of a sudden got to see this dark pattern, this beautiful kind of opening flower, this opening proscene of a stage between these two small pieces. And this is one of our first jumping off points, because from here, okay, all of a sudden I see this other one who's kind of cascaded across the floor. And then I see this piece by Adrian Sutton, this humanoid form that is kind of completely grotesque and then evolved into just shapes and matter. And from there, you start to see this really, really interesting story about different depictions of representation and form, feeling, and emotion. Quite literally, when we started, I'm hoping I'm showing it correctly, we kind of set a scene with the landscape. We kind of added figures into our landscape in this big punctuation mark, this big valley, this big mountain of the work that we wanted to show. And as we're kind of going through our landscape, we came across, and I'm sorry if this is probably really going to make people sick, this piece by Anita Steckel. I can't wait to hear y'all's perspective on how we got this work. Anita Steckel, much like the Gorilla Girl, second wave feminist, super all-star. Absolutely is as synonymous with any of the work the Gorilla Girls are doing. And this piece was just sitting here in the flat files. There's something about this dominance, even visually, of this natural and the irrational, and the structured and the man-made, and all these things kind of colliding together. And then again, I keep hitting it so many times, but we're seeing this literal entryway into this landscape. We're seeing form, we're seeing kind of evolve into this surreal landscape. And that was so much how we put together the show. We were able to just kind of move around, and I won't talk about every single piece in this way, but we go from this feminist icon to just the hyper aesthetics of Christo and Jean-Claude, the hyper formalism of Joseph Albers. And then we just go to like something silly like Pat Falco, who's just happy to be here. And I think that was just such a wonderful narrative and way for us to introduce a whole half of the gallery. And I won't bore you guys with this kind of story with the whole thing, but as easy as that, like, this is really how we were thinking about the show. Is finding these individual words, these phrases, these feelings, and creating a narrative about them. I think, I'm going to say the most eye-rolling thing, but I love that quote by my Indian. I never remember what people say, but do you remember how they made you feel? And something like this, I don't know a lot of what this word is saying. I know how it made me feel. We like to look at it. That's a lot of this show. So with that, I'm hoping that we can just kind of go slowly around and talk as works kind of come to people.
Probably know that picture.
Yeah. Oh.
Susan Carter. She's still in New York. Yeah. I don't know where Adrian.
Now we didn't have her as a student. What you remember about what year she was here?
Susan?
Yeah.
Are we talking about Susan?
Yeah.
Now, Susan was in the 80s, wasn't she, Rob?
I think so, yeah. Because I worked with her when I was the visiting artist in '86. So
I could say a little bit about Susan whenever you want.
Oh, that'd be great. Please, Laura.
So I tried to seat myself, and it didn't work because I'm actually in front of one of Susan's landscapes. She really is she's a great painter, but she's, I think, a particularly good landscape painter. And she paints a lot in Italy, so that's probably close to my heart. But she was part of a very vital cohort of students, among them, and anybody else can hop in because Barbara remembers too. But Carol Schlossberg was in her class, I believe, or close to. Jim Falk, Crazy Jim Falk, who should have something on the wall. He was in the class too. And so they were a fun group. I had Susan initially in my Art of the Italian Renaissance class, which was a lot of fun. And then got to know her really well subsequently and was able to invite her to teach in the Italy program for a couple of different times. In fact, she was co-director one year.
wow.
She really dedicated herself to her practice. She got a graduate degree. She's been teaching her whole career, and she's an assistant professor at Parsons New School right now, and still has, a very vital practice. And she was kind of a Gaben acolyte, don't you think, Rob, Ethan? She was a.
I think so, yeah.
Probably Barbara too, yeah.
Wow, that's spectacular. You remember at all this piece? Would you?
No, I don't remember that piece
Yeah.
particularly.
It was one of the ones, we had so many where we would have bits of information, sometimes just a title, sometimes just a year. We actually didn't have the year on this one, so we weren't sure. Maybe I'll take a step back and go to the grand piece, the Guerrilla Girls. You guys would love to hear the stories while they were here on campus.
Well, I could say some more, but I don't want to say too. I don't want to be haughty.
No, that's why we're here.
I don't have a lot to say about a lot of other pieces. So, the Guerrilla Girls coming to campus was quite the event, and certainly a highlight in my time there. And it was a show that actually originated out in Chicago, but Leonie Bradbury, who was the curator and the director, brought it to Montserrat. And of course, she put her stamp on it in her inevitable way. And she did that by asking them if they would agree to a count of work by women artists in the MFA. In other words, to take the poster that you see here, the original poster, which was aimed at the Met, and to redo it. but to do it with a group of us going down and counting. So two of the Gorilla Girls without their gorilla masks on, and Leonie and me and I think a couple of students, at least one student, went around one day and counted. And so that became the statistic that went on to the poster, which then went on to this big, like 200-foot truck, which drove around Boston. So yeah, it was very, it was just, I have to praise
a photograph of the poster in front of the MFA in the Globe.
I'm trying to remember. Rob, I can't hear you.
A photograph that was,
Yep.
very prominent. I think the Globe.
Yeah, and that could have really ticked off the MFA too. But again, there was a whole political thing where we talked to Jan Merkel, who was the director at the time, and told her that we were going to do the count. And the number, by the way, was something like 88% of the art in the museum was by men.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a discouraging statistic at the time. I think they're doing better now.
I had no idea that Montserrat Faculty, our community, was directly involved in the actual counting of the project.
That's right. Yeah, we were there counting.
That is incredible. Yeah, we saw some images, and I think this piece was alternately on the side of a billboard, but also they were in the whole windows of the 301 gallery. And I don't know if they kind of did the windows first and the billboard second, but either way, it looks spectacular. I mean, really between all four galleries, they had work from the Gorilla Girls. I remember seeing I think there was a chalkboard over there, maybe it was here perhaps. So I wish I could have been here for that show.
Is it a unique work, one of a kind?
Well, it's unique to Montserrat. It was printed just for us, yep.
Yeah.
And we actually have two of them. They are identical, but.
Oh, you do have two.
We do. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We think. Yeah. We're not sure, but yeah.
And Ethan, didn't they find more nudes in MFA than nudes?
Again, Jen, I'm sorry?
In the chat, Ethan Berry says, didn't they find more male nudes in the MFA than female nudes?
Well, I don't know.
I think so.
That's what I heard.
Well, certainly the old stuff, yeah.
Surprise after the walkthrough?
Wow.
In the classical period, maybe.
What was exciting to me about them coming to campus is they had big gorilla masks and whole costumes on, and no one knew who they really were. So there's a big mystery about who are these women artists, where are they, they're coming from New York, they're coming from Chicago, and none of us knew who they were.
Wow. Yeah, they're doing such a great job keeping their mystery even alive today. I mean, if you dig, but there's still such mysteries. Wow. If we're moving through the works, I mean, on that vein, can anyone identify how we got this Anita Steckel? They are, she in her era was definitely as big as the Gorilla Girls and moving very much the same circles.
The date is 79.
79. It's an artist proof. Not ringing any bells though, huh?
I've never seen that one.
It says donation of the artist. How do we know that?
That was an assumption.
Okay.
So that's how we have it. And we keep on cruising through. I think another massive exhibition for Montserrat was the Christo and Jean-Claude. Heard a lot of stories about that. Remember why they...
That was the only time that I ever had anything stolen out of my mailbox. Somebody stole my tickets. I was storing them there, and then I went back and they were gone.
Wow.
So I remember the lead up, because this is one of the first events we worked on with Stan. And we were going to use the cabin, and the event outgrew the cabin. So we ended up in the Briscoe Middle School, which had a fabulous theater, like Symphony Hall.
Oh my gosh.
And I was helping with the tech, and something went wrong with the slide projector in the middle of the show. And Christo was mic'd, and I had to lead him with a flashlight up into the balcony. But since the mic was live, he was cursing all the way out, and I had to tell him. There was a reception at the Penn, and we were arriving, and there's this couple hunkered down outside the Penn smoking. And it's Christo and Jean-Claude.
The middle school was packed. We bused people there, if you remember. We bused people there.
Yes, yeah.
Downtown from Montserrat.
He had a wonderful exchange with Cesario. Cesario really loved having Christo there because he came from a country ruled by a dictator, you know, and there was this wonderful moment with the both of them, you know, kind of solidarity.
How did we even have enough? Like, who had the connection to Christo and Jean-Claude?
Oh, it was Randy Lewis.
Randy Lewis?
Randy Lewis, wasn't it?
I think you're right. Mhm.
Yeah. I got elected to take them around, to squire them around for the day. I think I can thank Joe Broderick for that. You know, they're notoriously difficult to work with, and all of the negotiations just took 5 times as long as any other negotiation would take. So, the morning that I go to meet them, and I have to spend the whole day with them, I to the front of the president's office, and I shake their hands and say hello, and then Christo had to go inside for something, so I'm standing there with Jean-Claude, who's the scary one, you know, she's in charge. And I try to talk to her about Paris because I, you know, read up on it, and I came up with all these things I could talk to them about. And then she looks at me and she said, "Oh, I never really liked Paris. New York is my second." And then she says to me, "And what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm an art historian." She said, "Oh, art historians. They never understand us." And then I spend the whole day with them.
So I remember the story. I don't remember the whole story, but there is a story about, I mean, this was right after 9/11, and they needed to drive in, and I guess they needed to take a certain route that wouldn't go over any bridges or under any tunnels. Does anybody remember that?
That sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very long ride, I guess.
It wasn't. Well, yeah, it was. It was 2002, wasn't it? Was it 2002? Yeah.
It was shortly after it. And
Remember, we had another event in New York City in connection with the gates. And Christo and Jean-Claude. We had a hotel room overlooking Central Park.
Yeah.
We had a gathering.
Like the color of the elements.
I was impressed with their lecture because Christo was so famous across the world. And when he came to Montserrat, he gave more credit to his wife than to himself. He really put Jean-Claude as the owner of all these ideas. So I was impressed with that. At the time.
Yeah.
I just had to step out, but I remember, was there also a contingency that went to New York as a part of it?
Yeah,
Also,
campus in New York City, they go in the Central Park.
Wow.
Covered all of Central.
one thing I do remember is his wife had the most incredible hair. It looked like, to me, I remember it as copper wire. And I've never seen another person with that hair color.
And all she wore was Issey Miyake.
It was saffron, right? She kept saying saffron.
That's right.
We went to view the park from above in someone's apartment. We had permission.
That's right. We were in the Helmsley Hotel.
Yeah, right. So we got to see the curtains from high above.
Yeah. And Will Barnett came to view it too.
Yes, I can. He came
Yeah.
Now, what about another kind of incredible master, the Joseph Albert? I think, Rob, you were telling the story about how we got there.
Parker, which was right next to the Dunham Road campus.
Wow.
They owned the French, they owned the Howard Hodgkins, I remember. So, and I think the Albert was from there.
I'm not, because you attributed the same couple with the,
All
Yeah.
there is.
to me, visually, the most stunning show.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's interesting to see even people like Steve Locke are just visiting on Instagram and everything. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah.
And I think
One little crease in the corner. So Paul, I guess, knew the people at the blanking out his name, the framing place in Cambridge. Stanhope, that there's a little wrinkle that they just did that for.
it's one of those things, just like the Anita Steckel, they know it's been a flat fund. Who knows the last time we had seen it?
This is like 10, 12,000.
It's incredible.
We have any, I don't know how we got it.
We got a lot of stuff was given to us or donated to us. We walked away with a lot of furniture, tables, chairs.
I remember Lucas showing up. I'm there, he didn't know what he was looking at. And it was a Zuniga litho. And I wondered exactly, is it that caliber? It's a little unusual. It wasn't like what.
Yeah, they had some very good work, just,
What is missing,
they knew what they were giving away.
what is missing from this is the provenance, the printer, and all of that. If you could unmat it, there might be a printer's chop on it. Owlbears, probably printed in New York somewhere, maybe by Gemini, maybe. But that's information that we'd only get if we looked under the mat.
Maybe Paul did go through, maybe I wonder if in his records he's able to get that from the framers.
I mean, you could find out.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of history behind. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a particularly good one. There are a lot online. It just depends on how the color works, but this is superb.
It's amazing how many he did that were varying size. This is really big. Size.
Bigger than the paintings.
Yeah.
I think.
These were done in 20 by 20 too. He did a bunch, that were like a small scale, but same series.
Yeah, there's a mark where it was done at this French printing.
Oh.
I think you can see there's an impression in it. And I remember when Paul first got it framed, we looked and it was printed in the, I think, like early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of them were.
Yeah.
I think maybe all.
Oh, wait a minute, yeah. There's the chop right there. Denise Real Editions.
Yeah.
It's French. Yes.
Bradford facility.
There.
So were you at the meeting where we were trying to figure out a way to involve Will Barnett in the college more? And he went into this rant about modern painting. It was, we were
I've been there.
about how he might be involved and then he just went off on contemporary painting and we looked at each other and realized it wasn't going to work. I thought you were at that meeting. Maybe it was Catherine French.
I don't know. I don't have the greatest memory.
Yeah,
I think that would stick with me.
In the main gallery here.
right here.
So I had to, I worked on the catalog for the Will
Size
Barnett.
catalog.
I'm showing pictures of the catalog, actually. So Will Barnett, in the catalog, we have a foreword by John Updike. And so John Updike came to the Harney building, and they brought all of Will Barnett's work for the exhibition up into H206. And the work was all stuffed into that little room. And it was me and John Updike in there just talking about the work. And he just, was looking at it and talking about Beverly and some things like that. And so I said to John Updike, I said, when you're finished writing the foreword, you could just email it to me. And he said, email? I type it. I use a typewriter. And so I always wonder where that typed forward is for the catalog that came to Montserrat. So he had to type it, and he delivered it to Montserrat, and somebody put the words in that I used for the catalog. So I wonder where that is.
Yeah. So the story I heard from
Leone was that
when
Catherine
Catherine
left,
left, and you
and you
know,
know this, Laura,
when
when Catherine left and Leone took over,
Catherine, every,
You're going in and out, Ethan. I can't make it all out.
I'm sorry. So the story I heard,
never mind. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear now.
Okay, so the story I heard is that when Leone took over as gallery director and she went into the office, Catherine had taken everything, everything. So she had nothing. So answering John's question about where that typewritten forward is probably in Catherine French's possession.
You gotta remember,
No comment.
we had put some up for auction too. That's why I have a Will Barnett collection.
Yeah.
But it's too bad we could have had a really little pocket of work.
Yeah.
Just like across the street.
Yeah, I know from what we found, we probably have another half dozen different Barnetts.
You do?
Yeah, there's still some up there.
Yeah, we should really do something about that.
Yeah. They're beautiful.
Do we all remember how they used to hang in the public library just without any, you could just, all I could think of is you could just walk off with one. They were everywhere. It was beautiful, but it was not secure.
Laura, were they just kind of in crazy, junky frames just sitting around?
No, they weren't junky frames particularly that I remember. I just remember that, every time you turned a corner, especially on the third floor, which had very little traffic, there was just all this beautiful work everywhere. And, you wanted to say to people, probably Tim wanted to say to people, do you realize what you're in the presence of, right? It's pretty amazing.
They know, give them a good room, though. You're talking about the library itself? Yeah, they now do have a room, but they don't open it. They open the books. It's just, I send kids over to it. You're talking about, people forget him and Robert Blackburn started that print place in like 47. That's before Titania Grossman. They almost brought printmaking into this very different place. Other print houses weren't around yet, So he was kind of a master printer on top of.
Yeah.
Shot in New York trip.
Yeah.
Wow, does he still have family in Beverly?
No, they were all gone. The two sisters lived in the house, which is what it shows about, his father's house. That's right across from the senior studios, right up on the side street.
Oh.
The two sisters lived there right up to the end. It's kind of, so you see those women only in the windows. They're essentially.
So that's what the paintings are about, of the ghosts. The ghost of the dead sister.
Wow.
I had a buddy who rented the downstairs, and I wanted so much to sneak upstairs.
Wow. What about something like, I mean, the ads?
We feedback.
Ethan, is that coming on your computer?
Let me shut it off.
Yeah, we just need to mute. Something's going funky.
Echo in the money.
Yeah, the big Norman. I can tell a little bit of a story about him. A couple, just years back, we had a huge exhibition in the 301 gallery. We had 70 some odd painters painting. It was an incredible feat. It's one of those that we didn't really know what we had until we got it. When we first went to this beautiful mansion out there in
Yes.
the hut, it's a mansion with a name. It's incredible. And we were kind of just buzzing around. He has a nice studio, he has a nice thing, and we don't know what it was painting. And he kind of offered up, "Do you want to see some of the tapestries?" Like, sure, why not? And he just had trunk after trunk after trunk of these tapestries that he would pick up and flop on the ground, and step over to another one, and flop on that one. And they were just these tactile, beautiful objects. And I think that played so much into how we wanted to show. We wanted you to like have to bump into one hand to move around them. And when Nora was here for the reception, we had kind of created a maze in that gallery. And he was just buzzing around, like going up and under. It was just absolutely.
Really perfect installation.
Oh, it was so good.
That's the second time he's shown here.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the 80s, I put him in the show with the big gallery at Dunbar.
Oh, man. And he was part of 7 at one in the 2000s, right?
He might have been one of the 7 shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched him do that mural for 7. It was amazing.
Wow. He just had so much energy. I mean, I think I don't know about this one, but I think that some of the works that we showed, I mean, they hung next to the Pietà in that Vatican exhibition, which is incredible.
Well, the strangest thing, my older brother lived in Toronto, and I was visiting him. I must have been, I probably wasn't yet, I probably was still in like junior high. And Gallery Moves in Toronto, this is where I first saw Non Liberté with all these banners. He had a Canadian gallery.
Yeah, French Canadian.
Yeah.
When I was a young teacher in the 60s, he and a man named Alex Magalon wrote several books for art educators.
Wow.
And I couldn't, they were just fabulously inventive. They did a whole book on nail art. Just this sort of the brilliant, kind of fun approach to sort of being creative, inventive, and resourceful. And then when I realized he was lovable, and it was just, sort of a closing of the circle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he wrote a few.
And he was a partner in DR, Design Research, in Cambridge, which was a very successful high-end furniture store right in Church Street, Brattle Street.
Wow.
So he's had a successful career.
Besides showing here, was he ever faculty or on the board or anything, or nothing like that?
No, but he received an honorary degree, and he was our convocation speaker one year. He was very, very involved.
Yeah.
Really a great supporter of Montserrat. He loved the school. And he had a great collection himself. Did anybody have the opportunity to go to his house in Nahant?
We were just saying, yeah, Ethan and I have been there. It is spectacular.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And he had that Rauschenberg. And you remember the Rauschenberg? Yeah, anyway. Yeah, so a great collector as well as an educator and maker.
Very generous.
We had a student with did internships.
Yeah.
As part of their degree. And they had interesting stories.
I visited the National Film Board of Canada, which was a pilgrimage of sorts for me. And then the lobby of the National Film Board of Canada is in Northern La Liberté.
Kidding. Wow. This will be a reason for us to check up on him, see And they're kind of moving on through. I know that we'll talk a lot about Faye Chandler.
This mysterious one, I'd like to talk about.
This one we don't know, the Nobi. So one piece that I'll say, and it's just kind of the way that we were putting together the exhibition. This is a piece, it's a symbol of, I don't know how you guys can tell, but we'll have these images. It's just a man standing in front of a door with a sign that says freedom. It was a piece that actually was left over from an art educator exhibition. So this is an artist who is local-ish, but she was someone who came and did a summer program with us. We ended up getting back in contact with her, and she was happy to have the work in the show. But it's just sort of funny how sometimes the path really chooses you. And as we are moving works around the space, we just happen to have this wall lit like this because of the previous exhibition. And this piece just sung, and it really speaks to the moment that we're in right now. So I think we're happy to leave that right on the wall where it was at. And Ethan, you were talking about this piece. So there are many pieces we had no idea who they came from, what they were, this thing.
I wonder if we have the same idea. Do you have a guess?
Chris Broden.
That's who I think.
Yeah.
It could be Christopher Broden.
Chris Broden. Jen, write that down.
Yeah, it's an unusual Broden, but it could be his.
Oh, I don't know.
There is a signature on the back, and it's a very clear C, but it's a lot of stuff you can't tell.
Yeah, he did a series with using a tool like a piece of cardboard or string.
Yeah. Lines, series of lines. There's a small painting in kind of meeting room in Montserrat by him. It might make a connection.
Yeah.
Lines. It's bluish in color.
Because we've handled it so much, it almost feels like encaustic. It feels waxy. Was that part of his process?
I don't know, but I think he might have used encaustic. I think he was, I'm not sure if he's still in the area, but you could contact him and ask him.
Oxford or Topsfield, so his family is from the area.
Wow. Chris Broden.
Chris Broden.
Wow. Well, that's all mystery one down.
Maybe. It's a good shot, though.
And one that has us all talking.
Moving to the You Silly Girl. This one, of course, we skipped over the beautiful Faye Chandler, but this is our mystery for the whole exhibition. We have no idea.
The date puts it at, the period when we were in this building. So could it be a leftover unpurchased auction piece?
It could have been. What was interesting about so many of the auction pieces, they had either like the Mingo, those are the newer ones, had the Mingo or similar branding for the frames on them, and they came like that, but this has nothing on the back of it.
It's wonderful.
I mean, if you can't tell it looks like grease pen, it just really chunky, pastel-y goodness. You feel like you can just kind of take a handful of it.
Laura, oh, look, Barbara's holding something. Is that a Broden?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, nailed it.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yes.
Yes.
I have one too, but I like yours better.
One of my 2,000 auction purchases.
Oh.
That's a nice one.
So maybe Barbara was there or maybe Laura was there, but Joe very rarely came and took you out of a class. And he came and got me out of class, and I thought something terrible had happened. And this is at Dunham Road. And he brought me into the office, and there was Hester and Joe and this sort of middle-aged guy with a sport coat on. And the entire faculty lounge was full of paintings of chickens. Do you remember that guy?
I wasn't in my right yet.
He had come to the art school to ask what he could do because he couldn't stop. We didn't know, this guy was in deep trouble. And why he found us or how he found us, there were these there must have been 60 paintings in there, and he was just so tired, and he said, Can't stop, he said.
It was the 70s, baby.
Yeah. They found us. Right, yeah.
We can find that name, maybe we can trace him back.
No, this is not his painting because the date is wrong.
Oh, right.
This was in the early 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, mid.
I don't know who that is.
School started in 70. School started in 70, that's right. But it was in the 80s.
Barbara can tell us that.
What's the question?
The first days in Dunham Road were 1970.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Fall of 1970, we were at Castle Hill, and then in January, we moved to Dunham Road.
71.
The semester of the first year there. And I was a fourth year independent study student at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
We do the real 50th anniversary celebration next year. I think it's going to be well deserved. It's going to happen.
So we have to hang on for another year. Right?
So a personal favorite of mine is Dwayne Michaels. I truly wish I could have been here for that talk. I'd love to hear any stories or.
Well, it was very off color.
He was a.
They were two back to back, remember?
Right. It was a
Student.
No, you had two talks.
Right. We had Robert Ryman.
Robert Ryman was very.
Wow, incredible, huh?
Yeah.
And Dwayne Michaels. But we also had that student who went on kind of around. Oh, yeah. In fact, you mentioned him.
John Gambino.
Yeah, that's it. The Gambino crime family.
Yeah, we had Maya Droge as a faculty member back then, and he was telling Polish jokes.
In a very entertaining and humorous way.
Oh man. And John, I heard you talking. What were you saying? Sorry.
I said, well, Maya Droge was a full-time faculty member back then, and she was from Poland, and that student speaker he was an illustrator. Was making Polish jokes, and not good ones.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Talking about a student making Polish jokes.
Yeah, Maya George.
That's what I was saying. The school was making Polish jokes.
So what would have occurred in a year where we would have two huge? I mean, Robert Ryman on his own
It's huge. Yeah.
Dwayne Michaels on his own. How did we get two artists in 1 year like that?
Ask Laura.
Laura.
That, is that still Stan's era?
I don't know. I wasn't in the administration then. I was a local.
I would have known. Yeah, I mean, I would have been around here, so it had to be.
Dwayne Michaels came because of Stan, right? Stan had the connection. Stan Trekker had the connection with Dwayne Michaels.
Or Martha.
That's my recollection, from what I can recall.
06.
Was it to mark any special occasion or anything like that?
No, not that I know of.
So, did they both speak at the commencement?
Yes, Ryman gave a very short speech about painting. His
Right.
going to the studio and painting. It was, I think, very beautiful. Very quiet, very beautiful, very moving to me.
Where was that? I mean, where was it?
Because sometimes we had two speakers because one of them wouldn't speak. Do you remember that? We had Jenny Holster.
Jenny Holster wouldn't speak.
That's right. Yeah.
Jenny accepted the invitation, but then she said, "I don't give speeches." So we invited Amy.
We ended up with.
We're both there.
That
was another double header.
No. Close, but I can't think of her name.
The speaker was the printmaker, book guy, and he had the show in the Schlossberg. And he was talking about craft. I remember he was talking about craft. And his talk about craft was, how you have to be an expert at carpentry and all this sort of thing. And then when we were in the hallway in the Schlossberg Gallery, his frames were all sticks they were really crappy. And I didn't want to say anything to him, but, you know. Sorry for the honesty.
Going through, and I think that we actually have a rare guest, one of the artists in the show. Larry, is that you there? Do you want to, I'll wheel you in front of your piece. Do you want to say a couple words about it? We have a studio new O2. You recall much about that? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm not sure what year I took that. Does it say?
Yeah, O2.
O2. Well, that's probably an Olympus E4, one of the early Olympus digital cameras. And at the time, it was like the best resolution you can get, but it was only 4 megapixels. So none of those pictures can be blown up any more than that.
Wow.
Which is, a little bit of an inhibition. But what could you do? That was what was available. It cost me $2,000 at the time. And it was a lot of money then. I was teaching school, But, what could you do? That's from a drawing group that I held at my art studio. So it's probably in my studio.
Oh, okay. Yes, some thought it might have been Montserrat, but it's in your studio.
No, I think it was in my own studio. And ran for about 10 years. And once a week we had a model in.
Wow.
It was a really nice time. I really enjoyed the group and the camaraderie of having 6 or 7 other people in the studio. And it was just taken while she was in a standard pose.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of did a big spiel to start with, but the thing that we are so drawn to is really her shape as being kind of a mirror to the big Odaless for the Gorilla Girls. We just thought it was such an interesting vision of not only concept, but also form. You've got the big and the small and so many different things. So I'm really appreciative we have that in the show. And again, thank you for that catalog. For those that don't know,
John has one in his hand now, too.
Oh, yep, John's got one.
Yeah, John keeps one in the studio. John did the layout, by the way, on the book.
Wow,
thank you. Nice job. Thank you, John.
And we're going to kind of hope everyone, this doesn't make anyone sick. We're going to try to move out of the gallery into the second half of the show, into our little Schlossberg gallery. And there were kind of more pieces that were unknown in this section than I think in some of the others. This person, of course, the Cash for Your Warhol, or Jeff Hardigan. I know he's such a known artist around, but do you guys know how we came across a lot of this work?
Say again?
This Jeff Hardigan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, this is something that was probably in Leone's office.
Yeah.
He's in a book that I just got called Free Speech or something like that, but people who intervene in public spaces.
I remember seeing that out in this gallery. This was shown in this gallery.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a funny character. I think he was more of an entrepreneur than he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a great support. He was very supportive of the college.
Wow.
I have some stories about him that I can't tell here, but if anybody would like to know something about him, they can stop and talk to me anytime in the hallway.
Well, now I want to know. Did he ever have a show here or anything? Or just, again, maybe Leone collected it from Art Regis or something? Or...
No, I remember, I think he might have had a show, didn't he? Right in the Schlossberg.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we have, as far as I remember, we have 2 of these signs and, of course, the one framed print. And then we've got Amos Paul Kennedy, who was a VA, I think, in 2010. Is really spectacular, just super crunchy, beautiful. I wish you guys could really be here to just experience the depth of them.
He has a big poster show going on right now. I think.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't remember. I can't remember where, but it's a beautiful poster show. And he came to my classroom. And he was. I think he told the same story to everyone, but the one story I remember was everyone wants to know about. If you're in letterpress, you can get a job making wedding invitations. And his big story was, if you don't want to do that, and he doesn't make wedding invitations, but if somebody asks him, you're going to get a wedding invitation. It's going to be one color, his color of choice, and it's going to be 13 by 19 on this cardboard, and that's what you get. And if he likes you, maybe you'll get two colors, and you can't tell him what it's going to look like or anything. That's what it's going to be. And so most people just walk away. And he said, the reason you really don't want to make wedding invitations is, did you ever have to work with someone's mother-in-law? And but he was he was great in my classroom. He was just great.
I remember we actually reached out to him about the provenance of these, and if we could show him. Jen, do you recall he wrote just a really funny response? It was more or less like, "What do I care? They're art. Do whatever you want with them."
That's basically what. And then Annie just wrote in the chat that his poster show is in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And so it's another thing he told my students was that you need to get a workspace. You need to get a studio somewhere, and preferably free. That's what he was doing in Kentucky or wherever he was hiding.
Yeah.
At some old, it was a distillery, not a distillery. It was like, what's the illegal distillery?
Oh, like a
moonshine place, yeah.
Wow.
Formerly.
Wow. And in the prints too, this Clarence Carter, another kind of larger name when you Google. I wish you guys could just see the true kind of depth of this. I don't know if this was part of a portfolio or we do have a bunch of loose prints about that size. That's actually with the same stack that Anita Steckel. What they were from.
I don't know. I had never seen this before.
Yeah. And kind of with a sort of play on themes we were doing, not only do we have the hyper serious, hyper formal, hyper aesthetic Christo and John Claude, which is framed, which I love. Who doesn't love cats playing in the refrigerator? I think there's so much about the contradictions of the exhibition we wanted to exploit, which is the contradictions of our archive, that we have this work by Calder and Christo and a bunch of unnamed students who are here over summer making work, which is all valuable, all the same stuff. It's just beautiful.
Could we get the cameraman to come a little closer to the work?
Yes. I think it's the piece is by Michelle Rierick.
Thank you. Lost her named Ann Rierick.
Huh.
But I've never heard of Michelle Rierick.
Yeah. Now the biggest name we got going on here, Calder. Incredible.
Same couple.
Yeah. So we, as Tim was pointing out, we think it's the same couple, at least for the archive, the records we have, who gave us the Albers. But not sure. And I mean, not that I'm picking on the frame or anything, but if you guys, this is like, AC Moore would turn this down if they got it in there. Yeah. It's a pretty junky frame.
Yeah. You recognize that chop?
I don't know that chop. I was looking at it earlier. I don't.
Yeah.
But that's about $10,000.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. There are a lot from that period with the triangles. But when I know that all fits.
Yeah.
I can recall. So I think it's unusual.
It must be. We had found some documentation that there was some sort of conference in Boston that it might have been made for or in support of. But very, very, more or less just said that. It's like conference print or something. And then another lost and found are these strange lost and found cat and dog posters. We have no clue who they are. One more time. So for you to come in person, we have these QR codes. If you know who these people are, let us know. We want to fix it. We already got one mystery solved tonight.
I got an idea about these.
Oh, really?
Do you remember David and what was his name? Travis England?
Remember that name? The
David.
name was familiar. but I
They did work together under the name Brown Crown.
Dave Watson. Dave Watson.
Dave Watson. What do you think?
Can you bring the camera closer? I haven't looked at them again.
Actually, it's because the way we hung them, they're pretty, they're double-sided, they're perforated as if they could have been like part of a zine or something. I mean, they're brilliant, they're beautiful, they're bold.
It's their kind of humor, Stacy.
Yeah. I don't know if it doesn't look like Dave's writing, but I haven't looked at it in a while. But
Gosh.
David's in California now.
yeah.
David wants. Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's a better lead than we had.
His senior show was a whole wall of stuff like that, right? Wasn't it? A whole alcove wall of like just ephemera.
I found posters and things.
Yeah.
Cool.
As we're finally kind of working our way through, this was another little piece that we wanted to throw in. It's a video piece, of course, so it's kind of difficult to see you guys see over our Hangouts. But this was, if we are kind of tracking the show in terms of a journey, we wanted to throw this one in here in terms of the journey of documentation and ownership and what it means to have an archive and a collection. Documentation for performance from Roisin Gilligan in 2017. Actually, Kevin Lucy curated this student performance series, which was incredible in the Frame 301 gallery. And Roisin and another performer did this just haunting, beautiful performance for maybe 30 minutes. It was quite a long time.
It was grueling.
And as you can see them kind of struggling against themselves, against their own body, it was beautiful. So we are happy that Roisin was pleased to be in the exhibition. And it just brings up those interesting questions. And now more than ever, in terms of the Zoom, who owns a Zoom call? Well, which one of our likenesses get to have the one? You know, we're doing it over a Google platform. We probably all checked the box that said it's actually Google's. We're doing it on a work computer. Is it actually Montserrat's? Is it mine personally? It's an interesting thing about ownership in the public domain. And we're thinking about that with the public performance. Anyone could have walked by and documented it. It'll be just as much theirs as it is ours, as it is Roisin's. So
It's a document of another thing which I find interesting, which is the laundromat. And
and if you look closely, you see me. I do remember it's cold. It was really cold that night.
the days are numbered for that laundromat.
I did mention to you, I can't remember
He's that Easter shirt off one time.
grasp of it, but there was a short period of time where every year Montserrat would buy a student work out of
Oh,
the
wow.
senior show. There was funds for it, $500. Remember that? And I remember there was a video piece. I remember a very long, narrow painting. I don't know how long it went, 4 years,
Yes,
3, 4, 5 years we did that. And then it stopped.
Yep.
But those should be here somewhere.
I would love, yeah. I hope for the part 2, this really will be us going down to the real archive and looking through everything. Ideally, this show would be modular. There were some practical reasons of why we needed this show to happen in terms of COVID restrictions. But we like the idea of stuff kind of moving in, moving out, kind of swelling and shrinking as we learn more about the works. Thankfully, we anticipated it happening. It didn't happen. But we thought someone might say, why do you have my work taken off the wall? We kind of knew that was a possibility for some of our unknowns. Which, speaking of, back to, I think, between Jen, Kevin, and myself's favorite unknown, our sad little bizarre watercolor bear. We have a couple of them. They are so weird, so funny, so cool.
there's a signature on it.
Couldn't read it.
I don't know, B. Weiner, B. something, or?
Oh, yeah.
And
Somebody
undeniably,
can decipher that, I think. Somebody who's very good at reading handwriting.
we tried to check it across the archives that we had and just sort of do B and look at similar, but we just couldn't find anything. But for the, I thought that was just sort of maybe like a saltwater watercolor effect. But there was something too about this silly, but also ultra serious bear. I don't know the artist's intention. Next to this silly and ultra serious Faye Chandler. I would love, I mean, we actually have so much work. I know, Jen, you personally touched every single one of them. Maybe we have 2,000 pieces.
Is she on the board?
I would love to know from y'all's perspective. I know a little information about Faye, but.
Who knows about Faye Chandler? So, this is interesting.
The story of.
I know. Well, I sort of, I almost think about her as an outsider artist in a way, because she, she's one of those women that raised her family and then went on to have her creative life. And she was completely free with her materials and the way she worked. I mean, there's a kind of studied naivete about what she does, and she was amazingly prolific. I mean, she just cranked stuff out all the time. And so in her lifetime, she had this enormous production. She lived, I think she was 92, 3, 4, something like that. And we became associated, college became associated with her through her son, Appy, also, who was trying to start something. They started this thing called the Art Connection. And somebody chime in if you know more about it than I do, because I'm trying to remember exactly. But the idea, I believe, was that you would take the art that many artists have in their basements or whatever, and it was an opportunity for them to contribute it, to go onto the walls of social service organizations and places like that. Is that, Stacy's nodding, is that right, Stacy? And so we started working with them and putting it in Beverly Hospital and in different places downtown. And Faye was the motivation for this. And then she had a huge show. Ethan, did you go to that show? It was a huge show in like the Boston Center for the Arts.
Oh, on her website she shows that, so that must be the one.
Yeah.
Magnificent.
She was cool. We gave her an honorary degree. She has a black patch on and super short gray hair, and she's feisty as ever, age 90-something. Great.
Did you live in Back Bay or something like that?
I think so, yeah. And unfortunately, I think the Art Connection died off after her passing. But anyway, Appy and the family, again, very generous to Montserrat. Big supporters. And we were supportive, obviously, of them and their endeavors. And Leone, and at that time, I think it was, anyway, but the whole staff was very involved.
Yeah, probably Shayna. Shayna, yeah.
Oh, you're right. Let's talk about Shayna Dumont Guard. She'd be a great reach out for that, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I would just say, Nathan, that, we've been talking about Leone tonight, but one of the smartest things Leone ever did was to hire you.
But I'm going to save that and put it on my resume. Our last couple pieces is we have a couple of these Paul Shakespeare's in the archive. They are huge.
Oh, you've got more.
We have at least 2 of this scale. And Jen, I don't know if you can confirm, you maybe have smaller works too.
He usually works bigger. At least I think we have another bigger one, and then maybe one more small one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just say that we have one more big one for sure.
This person that donated this.
Now, these are the names that we just happen to have in the archive document. It's a shame it's a little bit warped. We were hoping it might shake out a little bit while it was on display for a while, but they have a beautiful veneer to them. I mean, they're just sumptuous.
I invited him to, I think it was the early 90s, to give a talk.
Wow.
And talk to students, critique students. And he brought back to me, I'd rather stick pencils in my eyes than talk about my work. I never got a letter back like that.
What's his story? Is he Boston area?
Boston area, yeah. Trying to think of the gallery.
can't remember.
Can't think of
Got some attention from.
Wow. Yeah, we'll have that. They're beautiful. And there's something, he kind of keeps a very similar palette to the ones we've seen with us. It's nice. And, our last little one, as we round out the exhibition, which we affectionately called in the gallery team, the Ghost Journals. I don't know what these are from. We actually have a whole stack, and they look West African, and you'll see some of the other ones just in their way that they were done. Some of them had clear accession records on them. They were in an archive somewhere at some point, but the accession records were quite aged and yellowed and everything like that. But they were on canvas at 1.2. We just have no idea. But as was the show, we just kept, we just started out with this absolute plethora of stuff. We just like dug. And I mean, it's a shame to think that we probably put an extra crease to a side so we could put our ghost gerbils up. But we just wanted to find the work that spoke to us and kind of, again, completed, as Ethan said earlier, like sort of completed that circle of what we were going with.
One less crease.
So there's work you didn't show. There's another show.
Well, there's 10 more shows.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jen. It might come to you. Well, thank you, guys. That's really kind of what I was hoping to do. This is a true gift for the archive, for the college, as are our wonderful faculty. As we all know, it is you guys who make this place special with the students. I mean, y'all have been on the forefront of artistic conversations and conceptualizations and ideations for your entire lives. And we are just so grateful for what you bring to the school, and your stories are a huge part of it. For anyone else there, is there any pieces that we missed that you might have a tidbit of information on? If you can think of anything, speak up, or otherwise, send us a note, gallery@montserrat.edu. We'll put this up on YouTube.
I'm just going to say goodbye,
Thank you, Larry.
right? Thank you for showing my work, and I appreciate your attention.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, thank you. Have a great night.
Good to see you all.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.